I'm here with local boy made good, or should I say extremely well. The Devil and next Bialystok all rolled into one. Brad Oscar, who plays the MC in Arena Stages production of Cabaret. So, Brad, what's it like to come back here to Arena Stage and work with Molly Smith and Meg Gillentine once again after burning up the stage as the Devil in Damn Yankees?
Yes, it's wonderful. I had such a fabulous time here last year with Damn Yankees. It's such a great place to work, as an actor. And so, yeah, it's a thrill to come back and to be working with Meg again and Molly on something so different than Damn Yankees. It's been a real challenge, and it's been very different from anything that I've ever done before. And I think you can only sometimes, certainly an actor like me, I'm not going to get a chance to play this role, play the MC, probably in a big commercial production in New York. I don't even know if I'd have any desire to. But coming here and being able to explore and being able to go through the process as you do, in regional theater, where the pressures are not there financially, commercially, as much as they are, has been a fabulous
Talk about the stage, what it's like to perform. It's a very different kind of stage.
You mean this
the fish handler.
The fish handler, yes, yeah. Well, it's in the round or it's in the square, really. But there are a lot of compromises that you make to work in a space like this, and the design as well for Cabaret is its own challenge. The way that the set has been designed, it's quite wonderful now that we're living in it, and it's become a little more of a home for us, as opposed to those first few days when you finally get on the set and you realize that this level goes down to that level and this platform rises here and you can't make the step you thought you could make because it's too high, or just all the adjustments that you make. But the one thing ultimately about working in the round that I love is that it really imitates life, because we live life in 360. We don't live life on a proscenium stage. And so once you sort of embrace that and get through this whole idea that there are people behind you who can't see, you have to keep opening up. You have the sense of keep wanting to open up. But once you sort of do embrace this concept and realize that they are all around you and that there are pluses and minuses being anywhere in the house, then you just sort of let it breathe. And
are you feeling more comfortable now?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I felt, once we got on stage with Damn Yankees, which was my first real experience in the round. I'd done a little bit, I guess, like in college and stuff like that, but not in a real professional venue. Soon after, I think Damn Yankees started up, and I got used to it. It hasn't been so much of an issue. And now with Cabaret, it's been much easier, again, to sort of, embrace that. And the hardest part can be just getting around backstage, because you have, these hallways that basically go around. And there are times when, it's very easy to get confused and not know whether you're at VOM 1 or VOM 3 or,
Well, I know just trying to find these rooms here, coming here to podcast.
It's a complicated little labyrinth.
It's a big maze here. I think I've bumped into more walls here than I cared to. Well, what's it like to be working with Broadway vets Walter Charles? We interviewed him yesterday, and you must listen to his tidbit of the Pineapple song. It's
really
precious.
Well, I did my first Broadway show with Walter Charles, Aspects of Love. So I have been, and I knew of Walter prior to that, because, I grew up as a kid. I loved the musical theater. I was... Sweeney Todd was, and still is, I think, my all-time favorite. And, Walter was in that original cast. Walter starts that show, basically. He sings that, Attend the Tale of Sweeney Todd. So I knew of Walter, and then, was fortunate enough to work with him in Aspects of Love, and have always been a big fan of his. And he's a great guy and such a gentleman, and, a wonderful actor to work with. And so, working with Walter has been wonderful. And Dottie Stanley is someone else that I have known of for years, and have met casually over the course of the last 20 years, in my 20 years in New York. But no, we'd never worked together, and that's been fantastic. And a whole we have an extraordinary company here.
Talk about Sherry Edelin, because she's
Sherry
one of my
Edelin,
favorites.
yes, who I know has been working down here forever, who actually worked with my sister, Victoria Oscar, who was also a performer, and Vicky did a lot of shows down here before she moved to New York, and now currently in LA. So Vicky's known Sherry forever, and Monique Mijette as well, who is local, but who's also done some Broadway stuff. It's been great to get to finally meet and know Sherry and work with her. She's one of those actresses that I could watch every night and never get bored, because there's something so incredibly alive and focused and hilarious about what she does in this show.
I must tell you, when I podcasted her at the Roundhouse, she did a Mark Twain.
Right,
musical.
Yes, yeah.
It is the funniest podcast I think I've ever done.
Really?
It is so wonderful.
That's great.
So you must listen to it one of these days.
I will.
If you ever get a chance, you're so busy. Well, tell me if you ever performed in another production of Cabaret.
No, I had never performed. I mean, it's a show that I've known forever. Again, as a kid growing up, it was one of those first cast albums that I listened to. But I've never done the show before.
Okay, well, now we're going to ask you the obvious question, which is, why did you want to play the MC? Because you knew you'd be compared to others who played it before. Joel Grey, another Jewish man who played the MC.
Yes, right.
A little unknown guy, who won a Tony and an Academy Award for it. Sure. Alan Cumming and local great Steve Kupo,
right,
who won the Helen Hayes Award for playing the MC in Signature Theater's production in 1996.
Right.
Norbert Leo Butz, who just won the Tony for Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, played the MC in the national tour that was at the Warner, and he also won a Helen Hayes Award in 2000 for that performance. Maybe you'll get lucky and win one too.
Yeah.
It's good tradition,
Sure. Hey, look.
So why would you want to do it? And being a Jew, why would you want to place the MC?
Oh my God, so many questions there. Yes, let's see. Well, first of all, okay, as an actor, you don't go into playing a role thinking, okay, I have to live up to this one, I have to live up to that one. First of all, the audience is made up of people who have seen everyone do the role and audience who has seen no one do the role. So it's just my responsibility to come in here and create my MC, right? Through our process, we created our production of Cabaret, which I think is probably different than any other production that's ever been done. It's not a question of making it the best, the ultimate. We took our journey in rehearsal. I think it's been an amazing process, and again, very challenging for me, and unlike anything I've ever done.
How long did it take, the rehearsal?
We had 4 weeks of rehearsal, but we spent the first week talking, discussing the parallels between then and now, pre-war Germany, and what's going on here, the Bill of Rights, things like that. I mean, it's a very political production in many ways, as I think it should be here in DC. Why not? Where do you get the opportunity to challenge, to take something to the level that I think we've taken it, and it's going to be to some people's tastes, and it's not going to be to others. But again, the joy of being here at Arena, and I think the joy of being in regional theater, is that you can explore, you can take chances and risks, and the success or failure of a certain project does not determine if Arena continues on, if they'll do the next show. There are going to be 8 shows this season at Arena Stage, and 8 next season, and God willing forever. There'll be, it'll go on and on and on. And so again, success and failure is a purely subjective thing in this venue.
Business, right?
It's part of the business, but in New York, if you open and you do get mostly negative reviews, you're not going to run. Here at Arena, it doesn't matter what the reviews are. We're going to run. We're going to do our 6-week run. Exactly. Base, so and that's a wonderful thing, because again, the theater, any art form is purely subjective. One person's best thing they've ever seen is another person's worst thing they've ever seen. So who's to say? Tackling the role, of course, I had the ghosts of Joel Grey in my head, especially because I grew up with that cast album. So how can I not hear him sing, Willkommen? You just hear it. I just hear it. And it took a while to sort of get away from that. It took a while in rehearsal and with the amazing, extraordinary guidance, support, help, love of Molly Smith, for me to find what my thing was going to be. Let those ghosts go and create this guy and ground him in my reality, or in our reality, as to how we were playing the piece. But there are always challenges like that. I mean, did I answer questions about what it was like to replace Nathan Lane as Max and not
try to copy
right
him.
Exactly. I mean, someone has defined a role so brilliantly, but as another actor going in, you can't imitate that. You can't do a copy of it. You have to bring yourself to the role. And in the ways that I did remind people of Nathan or sound like Nate or whatever, well, most of that was because that's who I am in a way, and isn't it coincidental? But my God, what got me there in the first place in that respect, And so in the same cases here, I think it's each, you just have to find your own thing and really try to stick to it. But yes, it's difficult. And of course I'd be lying to you if I didn't say that I'm aware of people comparing or thinking, oh, this or that.
Right.
But again, what can I do about that?
nothing.
Exactly. So we go out there and we do our show. I mean, right.
Okay, talk a little bit about some of the suggestions that Molly gave you with your performance.
Well, I mean, it's sort of, part of the process is something that I think, I don't know, as an actor, I like to keep to myself. So I don't know how much I'm actually going to tell you. Okay, but that being said,
here we go.
We did a lot of work on the actual period, starting with the Dada movement artistically, and the painter George Gross and his work of all these rather corpulent, round German guys that I was able to immediately look at and identify with in some way, or think that, oh, that could be me. I see myself in some of that work. So we sort of started there as to who this guy might be, because we wanted to play the MC as a real character in this time, not merely as a narrating device, which he can be, because he only has musical numbers. He doesn't have any dialogue or book scenes. He doesn't interact with any of the other characters in that traditional way. But we decided we wanted to ground him in reality, that he was a real guy working at a real club, as well as then this slight otherworldly quality that he has to have, because that's how the piece is written. And I love that he is in a way our narrator, that in our production, he's the guy who is sort of saying, okay, we're going to tell you a story now. And again, in our production, he's the guy who's going to say, are you getting this? Is this sort of making sense to you? Are you understanding some of these parallels? Are you understanding what happened then, and in a way what might be happening now? Are we asleep? Are we not speaking up in ways that we should be for things that are going on in this world that most of us might not really be for, but we're too scared or feel too helpless or whatever, or threatened? Exactly. So we sort of, we sort of found all of this through the process. I must say, for most of the rehearsal period, I felt like I hadn't a clue as to what I was doing. I felt very unmoored. I felt very much like I was trying things and throwing them out, and grabbing onto some things and then having to let them go because they ultimately weren't working. And that was very scary for me. That was very hard to get through a whole rehearsal process, not a whole rehearsal process, but a lot of it, and feel like I didn't have a handle on what I was doing. The flip side being, what a wonderful opportunity to be able to try and find the things that did ultimately work, again, with the guidance of Molly. Molly is, I've never worked with a director who is as, to say actor friendly is so trivial in a way. She's so much more than that, but she understands the process. She is so collaborative. She brings out the best in all of us, because we go into that room and everybody in that room, ensemble, the swings, the assistant directors, everybody in that room comes together to create this thing. Everybody can vocalize what they're thinking, what they're feeling. We do so much work around the table, talking about, asking each other questions. So it's such a collaborative process. And so it's a wonderful thing as an actor, I think, to be able to, have these endless possibilities, especially with a role like this. And then we eventually, I guess between the both of us, because, you need that third eye. I mean, as an actor, you're, so it's all about yourself. It's very hard to be objective. And as we went along, we were able to sort of nail down, what it was going to be and what worked best. And so, but it was a wild process, no question.
Well, let's talk about the staging, because you're running around a lot, but you get to lie down.
Exactly. I get to lie down and observe. And, the hardest thing really is putting on the makeup and changing clothes, because I change clothes a lot. It's not like the show. It's interesting now that we've done it for a couple weeks, we're settling in. I don't find the show to be as demanding on stage as I thought it would be. It's everything. It is. It's the off stage. I mean, when I'm off stage, I'm changing clothes. It never stops.
Do you have any dressers helping you?
Oh yeah. Yes.
How many?
I have one. I have a dresser, Sabato, who is fantastic. One of the hardest jobs in show business, I think, dressing. So selfless to give of yourself to an actor and get them in clothes and make sure they're looking pretty so they can go out and do what they do. Yes, now that I have the show in my body, I'm able to pace it a bit more, and so I don't find that my onstage show is nearly as exhausting as let's say Max Bialystock or doing Forbidden Broadway, where you never stop.
Right.
You're always changing, and then you're coming out and doing like 11 o'clock number after 11 o'clock number, so it keeps me busy, but the show is a lot more difficult emotionally than it is physically. Interestingly enough.
Let me ask you about singing "I Don't Care Much" because it's a very powerful moment.
Yeah,
it's usually not sung by the MC, right?
Well, no, it is. That's
is.
interesting. Yeah. The thing about the number is, I believe they wrote it originally. It was never in the original production in 66, 67? 67, right. Then they did the 1987 revival, which Joel Grey starred in, and they put the song in for him in 87. And then it was, of course, used in the Sam Mendes production, which started in London and then came to Broadway. And so it was sung by the MC in both productions. But it's interesting because people don't think that it was, or they don't even know the song.
Got it wrong.
How about that? No, but you know what? The interesting thing is, I've heard this from other people who I would think, well, I know you saw the Sam Mendes.
I just don't remember.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting.
I just didn't care too much.
Exactly. Yes. It's a great song. It's a great song.
Can you sing a little bit?
And can I say? Let's see. I don't care much, go or stay. I don't care very much either way. It's beautiful. It's so haunting, and it really, again, for our purposes, as we have created this guy and who this guy is. It helps me out extraordinarily with my arc, with my own personal journey through the show as the MC, and we've reached a point in Act 2 where literally the world is coming to an end in Berlin for all of our major characters,
especially
in one way or another.
People and artists.
Especially. Exactly. I mean, this Kit Kat Club was a place where all people from all walks of life could just go and be who they wanted to be. And all of a sudden, we're finding, at that point in the play, that it's all coming crashing down, and the Nazis are taking control, and they're starting to shut down all this stuff. And it's it's a wonderful number to have at that moment, emotionally, dramatically, and also to it's not really a show number at that point as well, meaning that it's not a number that I do in the Kit Kat Club. It eventually morphs into that, but it starts out as a much more personal song for me.
It just comes out of nowhere to attack the audience.
Yeah, exactly. Again, and it's a way that we use him as a narrator, and it's also a way that we're trying to, give him his own storyline.
Well, let's talk about another scene which I thought was so powerful. When you play the conductor on the train that Cliff is boarding to basically escape Berlin and all the bad experience he may have had there.
Right.
And he's on his way returning home to America. So, to me, it was very creepy.
Right.
And, and here you are.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit what you're thinking at that moment as an actor and also as the character, as the MC.
Well, again, using the notion that the MC is our storyteller in a way, it's sort of that moment now at the end of the play where I'm sort of saying to the audience, okay, did you get this now? Did you enjoy our story? Do you see any parallels here? Do you see any relevance in what happened and what's happening? I mean, the story. God knows the story itself. The time alone is powerful enough. Germany in the early 30s was crazy. How that all led to where it eventually led. We're trying not to, it's interesting. I was always aware or always sensitive to not letting it get too heavy-handed, not letting it get so blatant in that way that we somehow got away from what the authors wrote or intended. And I don't think that we have. I think that that's what's so brilliant about the piece is that it holds up to this sort of inspection. It holds up to this sort of exploration. The way we have staged that scene at the end, when I come back as the conductor and then become the MC again for those final moments of the play, I think is a very, it's jarring, it's creepy. I've taken off all of my makeup, which is very interesting because I have a full face of makeup on for the whole show. But for this last moment, when I come out as the conductor and then eventually become the MC again, he's totally stripped down. He has no makeup on, and then of course the final visual image, which I don't necessarily want to give away, but I think it is very powerful, and I think it's very theatrical, and I love that because again, these are things you can only do in the theater, things that would not necessarily ever work on screen or on film.
Well, let's talk about something lighter, about growing up in Aspen Hill. I wanted to change this. I was getting depressed here for a moment. I know. What about Aspen Hill? And when you decided you wanted to be an actor, it was what I call coach or ham. So.
Yeah. I mean, always, sort of. Gosh, I was always putting on shows in the basement and, making puppets and haunted houses and all this stuff. I was totally into it as a kid, and I was very blessed because my parents nurtured, very supportive. I had teachers at school, from elementary school on, that really helped me and nurtured me. It was a great place to grow up. I loved growing up here. There was always, once I got to the age where my parents started bringing me to the theater, and that was actually at a very young age. Matter of fact, the first professional production I ever saw was right here at Arena Stage in The Fitch Handler. Raisin, the musical version of Raisin in the Sun, which started out here and then went to Broadway in 1973. Exactly. Right. And is still one of my favorite shows. Of course, I have such an emotional attachment to it. But this was a great place to grow up because there was the opportunity to do stuff, community theater. Certainly I did a lot of stuff out at the JCC in Rockville. The Jewish Community Center had an amazing theater department for kids that I got so much early training at. And
What other theaters locally did you perform in?
I did some work with Rockville Music Theater. I did Montgomery College Summer Dinner Theater for several summers in the early 80s, Yeah. And, what else? And then I did some television work as well here at NBC Channel 4. I did a show called The New Place with Sue Simmons in 1976 or 7 before she went to New York. And she's been our lead anchor in New York City forever since she left D.C. And then I did a show at Channel 9, In Our Lives, that ran for a while. I did the first season or 2 of that before I went off to college.
And where did you go to college?
I went to Boston University. Yeah, went to BU. Hockey team there. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So talk about moving to New York. When did you decide to do that? And then you were in Forbidden Broadway, which is one of my favorite shows. Yeah. And we can talk about some of those crazy parodies.
Sure. Well, I moved to New York after I graduated from college. I mean, it was all very traditional for me, as a kid, again, once I think I was 12 or 13, we meaning my parents and my sister Victoria and I, we'd go up to New York for the weekend. We'd see 4 shows. So it was always Fantasyland for me. So that was always where I knew I wanted to be. And everything just sort of progressed. I went to college. I got my BFA. I moved to the city. I started waiting tables and auditioning. And I went from waiting tables on 45th Street to my first Broadway show, Aspects of Love, on 44th Street. Did that for a couple years on Broadway and on tour. And then Forbidden Broadway, which again just sort of came out.
Let's talk about Forbidden Broadway because what were some of your favorite parodies? Let me tell you what mine was first.
Okay.
It was Grimm Hotel. Remember that one? I mean, it's got that great line.
Of course.
When the Lillian Matavecki character turns to her assistant, was played by Karen Akers on Broadway.
Yes.
Who happens to be severely attracted to her.
Yes.
Remember that?
Of course.
She says, I have tutus more straighter than you. Remember that one?
Exactly.
That was my favorite.
Of course.
I never saw you guys do that one.
I think when I first came into the show, it was the best. It was like the what anniversary at that point? I'm so blanking.
The third one, because you're on the CD. Could it be that one?
Yeah, but when I came into the show, they were still doing Grimm Hotel. I remember I did it for a couple of weeks, but literally only because then things changed so quickly. I went into the show, and then I remember a couple of weeks later, we were rehearsing Forbidden Christmas.
Which I saw. I brought the playbill with me.
And then back to a new edition of Forbidden Broadway. So it was always new stuff going in, and it was crazy. It was a blast, though. I mean, it was so much fun. I worked with a great group of people.
I'm talking about Christine Petty, who I know and who I love.
Christine Petty.
Who did the best Liza thing, was Liza One Note. Remember that one?
Yeah, of
that
course.
Was hysterical.
Yes, she does a great Liza. Suzanne Blakesley, an extraordinary Forbidden Broadway vet who, did an amazing Julie Andrews and Barbra Streisand and stuff like that. It was, I loved it.
So what were your favorite parodies?
My favorite parodies. Well, of course, I did Mandy for a while, which, it's always fun to do Mandy.
Right.
But,
Want to do a little Mandy?
I think it's a little too early in the day for me to get up there in my upper register.
I can imagine. It's painful, I bet, right?
Exactly. It's not really. No, see, it's not really there.
How about Chew It?
We did Chew It. Of course, I got to do Nathan before I knew Nathan. Yes, got to Nathan. Yeah.
How about that
Miss Saigon? And then Miss Saigon, where I actually got to play Miss Saigon, which was wonderful. Non-traditional casting. Yeah. We did a great Blood Brothers with the Cassidy boys. Because at that point, I believe that David Cassidy and Sean Cassidy had gone into Blood Brothers in New York and Petula Clark, and we did a very funny, I thought, Blood Brothers thing. Oh my gosh.
Can you do the Nathan thing again? I think I interrupted you.
I was just doing that, just doing it. Yeah. I forgot what the lyric was, too. What? Chew it. Wow. Oh, it's been a long time. Chew it, exactly.
Okay, let's go to the producers because, you got nominated for Best Featured Actor in the Musical, and Gary Beach won that year.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay. You didn't feel so bad, right?
Oh, my goodness. Just to be invited to that party was enough for me, let me tell you. Yeah.
So you were the understudy for Franz Liebken, right? And it was Ron Orbach who broke his leg in Chicago.
Yes.
That's how you came in there.
Right? Yeah, I was covering, actually covering... my God, 3 principal roles and 4 or 5 ensemble roles, and Ron had a knee issue, and I went in for a couple of weeks while he was recouping while we were in Chicago pre-Broadway, and they were happy with what was happening, and I took over and opened the show in New York.
You know that great song, Deutsche Band?
Oh, yes.
Can you do a little?
Haben Sie gehört, das Deutsche Band? Mit der Bang, mit der Boom. Mit der Bing, Bang, Bing, Bang, Boom. Haben Sie gehört, das Deutsche Band? Oh, my goodness, I haven't sung it in forever. It's hilarious.
That was great.
Yeah, that was
caused a furor every time you did that.
Exactly.
All right. So what was it like? You talked about Nathan. What about that cast to work with Nathan and Matthew Broderick and Roger Howard and Gary Beach, who's a Virginian,
Exactly. Local boy Gary Beach. Yeah. Oh, it was, my gosh, how do you, all those people on stage and then off stage, Susan Stroman and Mel Brooks and all of our designers. And it was the best of the best. It was, now looking back on it, because it's been 5.5 years since we opened, it almost has a certain surreal quality, because how often does that really happen when it all comes together like that? Where everybody's on the same page and creating something pretty special in that way. It was a marvelous time. It was very heady. It was very, stressful in its own way, to sort of step up to the plate in that respect. But I was, more than ready, more than willing, and more than able. So it was a great time.
Talk about stepping in for Nathan. When that first time was.
Yeah, again, also crazy, because, here the show had opened and it was such a huge success, and everyone was clamoring for tickets. That first year you couldn't get a ticket. So, audiences walk in and they find out that, Nathan's out, and of course they were far, far, far from happy. But again, my job was to go out there and play Max, not to go out and apologize for Nathan's absence, not to go out and imitate Nathan, not to go out and do anything but try to play Max Bialystock opposite Matthew Broderick. At least you were getting 1 star for your buck. Yes, of course, my initial interpretation of that role was based on what Nathan was doing, because that was the structure, that was the template that had been created. So, that first year when I would go on as the understudy, of course, I would have to fill that, again, not imitating, not going out and mocking what he was doing, but filling that structure in a way. Once the boys left the show, and I eventually took over the role of Max opposite
Talk about Henry Goodman
Stephen
for
Weber.
a second there.
Yes, there was a 4-week window, which was also its own crazy thing in a way. Trying to replace those guys was, and still is, has been a big issue for the show, because, they're very unique and special in their own way. They created something, not just a performance, but a my gosh, what do you?
I know. I was there in New York at that time, and I saw them putting up all this Henry Goodman posters.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was back 4 weeks later, and they ripped them down. It was the most bizarre thing I'd ever seen.
You know, it was just a very strange. Again, this business is purely subjective. So for whatever reason, they felt that wasn't working. They felt it wasn't working, and instead of just letting it go, they decided to, try to.
I saw one of those performances, and I can tell you, it just didn't work.
Yeah, it was a different thing. It was a different thing, and so that happened, and then they let Henry go, and I took over, and opposite the great Steven Weber, who I adore, and then I was able to start to make the role more my own. Then Steven and I were able to create something that was ours, which was great. And Stro and Mel always, from that point on, because I did the show for a while after that, as Max on Broadway, on tour in London. And they were always very. Yes, there was a template, and yes, there was a structure. That we adhered to, but they also were very encouraging for these actors to make the roles their own in a way, and not, have to think that you had to, in some way, imitate. Please, let's go back to Zero Mostel and Gene Wilder. What more, could you ask for, right? And then you had Nathan and Matthew who were able to make it their own and own it in their way. I guess it's easier if you're a star in a way, because the audience meets you halfway. They know you. They come in with some sort of relationship to the actor. When you're not a name or you're not a star, you don't have that luxury in a way.
You have to prove yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You do. So,
but I remember sitting in the Cafe Edison eating those great blintzes. And there was a family there, and you had just gotten in. And they were saying, God, he's so good. He's like Nathan. So I said, okay. If I ever see him again, I'll say that wasn't a bad compliment, right?
No, exactly. People, it's funny, people will say things to you, and certainly as an actor, because it's so personal, if people say, wow, you were so good, I felt like you were just like Nathan, or I would have thought I was seeing Nathan Lane, and they think it's a compliment, and of course inside you're going, well, wait a minute, what about Brad Oscar? I'm not Nathan Lane. I don't want to be Nathan Lane. I love, respect, and think Nathan Lane is extraordinary, but, I got to be
nicer,
I got to be my own thing. And but yeah, please, what an opportunity and what an amazing time it was.
Well, let's talk about Hunter Foster, because I want to give him a plug for his Summer of 42, which is coming to Roundhouse. It didn't do very well off Broadway, unfortunately.
No,
but they've been working on it.
Yeah,
and it's coming down. I'm looking very.
I believe it also opened at a difficult time. That was still, I don't know, off Broadway, so tricky. Still, exactly. Yeah. Oh yeah, Hunter Foster is a great guy, and I have so much respect for people who write as well as perform. I think writing is people who write new musicals, especially, because it's they're a dying breed, right? Who wants to go write a new musical? What are the odds it's going to even get produced, much less be a success in that way? So I love working with Hunter, and I love the fact that he writes.
Well, let's talk about the great movie that came out, and you may have been lucky that you just had a little snippet there, a cameo as a taxi driver. Why didn't she move that camera?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I was proud to be a part of it. Believe me, there are things, in many ways, I love that the movie is a very faithful representation of the stage show. And, they didn't mess with it that much. That might have also been the reason why it didn't work as well or wasn't a success, I don't know. It is impossible for me to be objective. So, yeah, what can I tell you?
Let me just ask you about Cam Jensen. I want to give you that plug, because it's a workshop that you did with Theater Works USA.
Yes.
Talk a little bit, and Larry O'Keefe. Who wrote Bat Boy, and I saw it right after 9/11. Yeah. And it was wonderful. It's one of my favorite shows.
Yeah, Larry O'Keefe and his wife, Nell Benjamin, who are writing the upcoming Broadway musical Legally Blonde, which will be on Broadway this spring. Yeah, they're fantastic writers. Larry, of course, wrote Bat Boy, as you said, and this Cam Jansen, which is based on, I guess, a series of children's books. I wasn't familiar with the character prior. But yeah, it was a blast, because that was one of those wonderful things where you go in a room for 2 weeks, and the piece is new, so you're the first ones that are vocalizing these songs, this book, whatever, and I had a blast. Yeah.
Let's talk about you playing Santa Claus. Why do all these Jewish guys play Santa Claus?
I don't know. They say Jesus was a Jew, so maybe Santa was a Jew too. I don't know.
Well,
But I loved playing Santa Claus.
When I was a kid, I always wanted to sit on Santa. My father was an Orthodox cantor, so he would never let me go near him. And I finally sat on Santa, and he said that, he was speaking in Yiddish. He was wondering why this Jewish guy scared the heck out of me.
That's confusing.
How do you rest your voice between shows?
I pretty much just try to rest my voice. I get, you just sort of you live your life based on the compromise of getting through 8 shows a week, physically and vocally, and you sort of, at least me, I go in and out of times when it's very easy and effortless, and I can maybe party a little more, have a couple drinks, whatever, and times when I really have to take care of myself and go home after the show and try to shut up and and really take care of myself. Allergies, we deal with all that fun stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's next for you after Cabaret?
I don't know, old chum. We'll see. I'm going to start auditioning again. There's talk of the producers going to Las Vegas, which may happen. So that's a possibility, but at this point, nothing is definite. Yeah.
Hopefully not produced by the Avenue Q people.
No, exactly. Well, that's the big. It's been a little dodgy out there, right?
Right.
So we'll see.
So here you go. Just personally invite our listeners to come to Cabaret.
Please.
And tell them why. And if you could end our thing with a little snippet of Willkommen.
Yeah.
It's perfect, right?
I think that I think those who know Cabaret and those who don't know Cabaret will have a very interesting theatrical experience. Again, I think you don't see stuff like this. You're not going to see stuff like this on Broadway. You're not going to see stuff like this at the National. You're only going to see stuff like this at Arena Stage, I think, in DC, which is why I love being here and would come back here in a second to do anything, because it's a wonderful place to work. And I think we challenge the audiences as well as challenging ourselves. And so, I invite everybody to come on down and check out what we're doing, because I think it's pretty fascinating. Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome from the étranger, stranger. Come to Arena, come see our show. I can't think of a rhyme now, so I have to go. Wir sagen. How's that?
Great. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure.